Thank you once again. You're welcome to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis show. We are live from your Joy News channel on Multi-TV here in Kokomlemle, also on Joy 99.7 FM, Love 99.5 in Kumasi, and over a dozen affiliate stations across the country. Subsequently, the show is available in London and elsewhere in Europe on your ABN television, your Sky channel. Thank you once again. It's also available at myjoyonline.com and multitvworld/streams. Also, you can also download the TuneIn app and listen. Now, I've got my guests ready to do justice to the issues that we have tabled for discussion this morning. Abdul Malik Wekubako Jr. is a regular panelist. He's the editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Abdul Malik, good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, my brother.
Great. And whilst I was conducting that interview, Abdul Malik gave me a punch line. It ended the interview. He said, if he says he's not the author, then that's the end of the story. If he says that's not his name, then end of the story. Also, we have Baba Jamal. He's the Deputy Minister of Employment and Social Welfare. Good morning. Labor Relations. Yeah. For a long time, used to be associated with social welfare. Okay, good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We haven't had you on this show for a long time, right?
That's true.
It's good to have you. Refreshing.
Yes.
Yes, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's very, very, very good to have you also here. And the text lines that you have to use, 1422, that's a text line, 1422. You can also post your messages on 1760 or also on our Facebook wall, and we'll share them with the rest of the world. Kofi Bentel is Vice President of Imani Ghana. That's the think tank that's making a lot of waves across the globe and particularly becoming second in Africa. Is that it?
Yeah.
Second in Africa among think tanks. He's also a business strategy lecturer and consultant. And of course, he's a lawyer. That one I know so sure. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, sir.
Great. Also, we have for you a very surprise. Abuga Pele, former national coordinator of GYEEDA, and he's also the MP for, is it Chana Paga? Right, Chana Paga. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you, good morning.
Great.
You didn't tell the public that I'm also an MP.
Oh, you are also
an MP. is very important.
Yes. As for your MPship, you know the controversies that surrounded your campaigning and everything. It's not in doubt. Okay. That's Akwetia.
Akwetia.
Thank you very much. Right. You haven't heard Abuga Pele in a long while. And there are those who say that he's a man that is being used as a scapegoat as far as the GYEEDA prosecutions are concerned. We are not here to talk about the prosecution and what he's doing in the courtroom. I will not actually endorse that before any court slaps us with any contempt. But he's here because, you know, he played a major role in GYEEDA's, progress. And now that it has taken a new shape, what are his thoughts on the way forward? Thank you very much and welcome once again to the show. Now, I'd like to start with you, Baba.
Yes.
We thought that, and many thought that, after the president had ordered the Minister of Youth and Sports, Elvis Afriankra, had set up the committee that investigated GYEEDA over the rots that came up, and after the president had done everything that was supposed to be done, and the prosecution started, you would wait for everything to end to see, the way forward. Rather than in the middle of all of that, people are being asked to refund monies. They haven't refunded even a quarter of the monies yet. I'll be dealing with the details of that subsequently. And here we are going back to the project again. And this time round with a dream of employing 100,000 youth.
Yes, that's true. Let me just respond by saying that if we are to wait for all the processes to finish before we say we'll embark on the project, then it means that we'll maybe wait forever because the issues are so complex that you don't expect to see an end to it very soon or so soon as expected. The most important thing about this project is that both sides of the divide, I'm talking about the minority, majority in parliament, both agree and admit that the project is a good project. It is a project that, a good project that suffered a bad fate. And so if you say because...
It suffered bad management, that's what you mean?
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. It suffered a bad fate in terms of its management and prosecution. And so if you admit that the thing is a good project, it's a project that can bring some relief to our youth, all of us in Parliament agree that youth unemployment is becoming a very serious matter for us as a country. We all know what happened in countries like Tunisia, the Arab Spring, and how it started. It's all due to youth unemployment. So if you are not careful and you don't take some proactive measures now, you are going to have serious problems in the future. And that is why those people who conceived the idea, and I'm talking in terms of the late Baunredu, who was then the minister in charge of that, and he conceived the idea and gave the proposals and actually laid the founding blocks for this particular project. Now, when the project started, because it's actually one of the major problems of the National Youth Employment Program, which later became GYEEDA, was because, one, it started purely as more or less a political agency. And so people were appointing their favorites, their own brothers, sisters in there. So that was one of the major problems. So it took a political image from the very inception of the project. Then the second major project that is that it was being operated as a matter of policy. There was really no law that was guiding or was supposed to regulate the activity of the agency. So that was also another project. So a lot of people were doing try and errors, doing things as to the whims and caprices of ministers who are in charge or chief executives who were put in there. So this was another problem. Another problem was also the caliber of people who were in the project. When you look at the people, because they were appointed based on political consideration and whatnot.
There were people who were doing accounting jobs without accounting.
Without nothing, without no qualification at all. You'll be surprised that people even held middle school living certificate, and they were supervisors, high-ranking officers of the place. You understand? And it is all because of the political nature the project took from the very onset. So that is some of the problems. In fact, these are some of the major problems identified by the committee that was set up to go into the project, and the committee came out with all this. Now, coming back to the project itself, whether it is it a good project or bad project? If a project is good project, so you don't just say because it has suffered a bad fate, you throw the baby with the bad water. Yep. So what the government thought is that, fine, now that the reports are out, now that we know the problem that the agency has suffered or has faced, how do we go around it? And whilst the committee was doing its work and those reports came out, the agency itself also went through some transformation. Even before the law came, the president appointed an acting chief executive to restructure the place. And as I talk to you now, serious restructuring took place there. For example, one of the things that the committee recommended was that some of the contracts that were signed, in fact, if you see some of the contracts and the way they were signed, you will laugh at them. And I'm not talking about one government or the other. I'm talking about from the very inception of the project to the point where operation stopped. Because since 2013, not much has been done in GYEEDA, which is now here, you understand. So if you go in there, if you read some of the projects, some of the models that were churned out and the way it was handled, it leaves a lot to be desired. And so all of us agree that there were a lot of things that went wrong with the agency. So since the new acting chief executive took place, he really has done a lot in there.
You're talking about Kobe Champo.
Kobe Champo. He, for example, they set up a debt reconciliation committee, ensured that all the debts and liabilities of the agency was taken, stock was taken. And also, sometimes people have the impression that it is only people who owe GYEEDA. GYEEDA also owe people. Because there are people who also offered genuine services to GYEEDA which were not paid. So we have to do that job reconciliation to ensure that how much GYEEDA is owing and how much is owed GYEEDA.
Okay.
And surely those ones we took stock of.
Those are supposed to be your preliminary comments. We'll come to look at how the law now becomes a panacea for all the problems that had bedeviled that very noble idea to create employment for the youth of this country. But let me read just a portion of the report, investigative report for all of us, and then I would hear from Kofi Bentil, and then we'll move on. It says that this is page 6 of the report. Says there's a certain table there, and it says, as shown in the table above, from 2009 to 2012, almost 950 million Ghana cedis had been expended on NYEP. In addition, based on available figures as of 30th June 2013, provided by the Finance Department of GYEEDA, GYEEDA was indebted to the tune of 250 million Ghana cedis. You're talking about GYEEDA owing. 250 million Ghana cedis, about 47%, or 122 million Ghana cedis, is owed to Better Ghana Management Services. The committee observes that at its inception, some management team members of GYEEDA resisted the Better Ghana Management Services engagement. A fair estimate shows that, given the pre-financing nature of the arrangements with the Better Ghana Management Services, GYEEDA is paying financing cost of about 100% per month, or 102,200% per annum. The committee observes with concern that government, with all its spending power, should be borrowing at such a high interest rate. The committee believes that with the right level of financial planning, GYEEDA should be able to borrow from elsewhere at 50% per annum at worst. The committee found that GYEEDA lacks the requisite structures and systems to effectively manage the amount of national resources it receives as a result of several factors militating against effective management of the finances of GYEEDA, unquote. Kofi, so GYEEDA is actually back, bigger and better. That's what we are supposed to see it.
Well, if you look hard, it's not bigger and better. It reflects what is wrong with policymaking in this country. And at Imani, we have been analyzing what is now YEA from when it was NYEP. And that was in MPP time. When the idea came, we said, look, most of these, what they call social intervention ideas, are based on good intentions, but usually you have set bad strategy and structure that they would almost always lead to corruption and waste. The problem at NYEP is what has run through, and now we have YEA. The Honorable Minister said it's a good idea and both parties accept that it's a good project. I disagree. Because it's not a good idea. One of the problems of this country is
it's not a good idea to provide jobs for the youth?
You see, a good intention. The best youth policy is education for all youth. That's the best youth policy. If you have a situation where a society fails to educate its youth and you end up in that kind of problem, you have to have another way to deal with it. You can have the short-term treatment of it and then the longer-term treatment of it to take it away. You have a situation where a bad strategy has followed a good intention. At the time, we said, look, this was going to lead to these kinds of problems, almost, exactly what has happened. How do you try to depoliticize something that you put in the hands of politicians? it won't happen. Okay? And how do you say this was because of no law? That is the question you're asking. Will the law solve this problem? No. Look, you have a situation where we are not spending enough money, not giving enough attention, not managing our education well enough. And then when we get these problems, we try to solve them with things like GYEEDA. We have had the experience, and the experience has been bad. And we are going back to do the same thing and expect a different result. And the excuse we are giving ourselves is that, well, there was no law, and that is why it went that way. Samson, there are 4 fundamental laws, and every human activity fits in them. You don't need a new law to sign a good contract. If you sign a good contract and the person does not abide by the contract, you should abrogate the contract, collect your money, etc. You don't need a specific law to carry on, govern, whatever. Some things don't lend themselves to very quick solution. You have to take time, go through the mill, and solve them. Youth unemployment is caused by a lack of education. We need to go back and fix that problem. It will take a bit of time. In the meantime, what happened to technical and vocational education? What happened to apprenticeship programs? Okay, we have already institutions in this country specifically taxed to do these things. We bypass them, create huge sums of money. If you compare what we are spending in GYEEDA from NYEP and now YEA, and you put that against what we are spending in primary education and JHS education, you'll be amazed. We are spending about half plus. Okay? So you have a situation where we are engineering.
Can you repeat that?
What we are spending, what you read right now, Page says, here's the table. We've spent since 2009 about 950 million. Indeed, from 2006, it's about 2 billion. Okay? If you calculate, we spend 1.388 in primary education. So look at how much, about half at least. We are leaving the right areas unattended to. We create a problem and then we try to solve it in a way that cannot solve it. So as a good idea, I doubt it. I think we must be really trying to avoid the situation. Okay, they are there right now. We need to do something about them. What happened to apprenticeship programs and all the other things that we have in the system? You know how many people were enrolled in vocational institutions in 2013? 49,173. And we are thinking of 100,000 youth for YEA. And we have some of these institutions already there. Okay, so I think that here is a plan by politicians that lends itself to political misuse. We have had that experience. We are going back to try and do the same thing and expect a different result. There's a name for that.
All right, you're still here on Newsfile. Your comments are welcome, 1422, and this show is brought to you by the candid sponsorship of Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN. Welcome to the new world. And you just heard the comparison that Kofi Bentil begins to make. That is just the tip of the iceberg as far as what's the dossier he has that I'm citing is concerned. So just hold your breath. He's going to dig even deeper as we continue with the discussion. Mr. Bugapele, as far as you are concerned, okay, do you take the nonchalant attitude because you are being prosecuted, you can't be bothered about what is going on, or you look at this and you say, refreshing. We needed a legal regime we didn't have. Now we are getting that, they are getting that in place. So that is good, you support it.
Thank you. Let me say happy Valentine to my constituents and to all of you here.
Right.
Let me start by saying that, yes, everybody in this country agrees that we must establish sound institutional framework for development and progress in the society. It's only when the economy is running well, when institutions are in good place and they are running well with good management and so forth, that employment is generated. But we must also be very realistic and understand that the limit or the progress that we should be making to generate this employment is such that it has not yielded the required employment opportunities in this country. Nobody doubts that, like my friend here said, education, if it's sound, if it's on a good course, can lead to a lot of capacity building. Many of the institutions like this, training institutions that have been established, if they are used and properly resourced, can also lead to good training and as a result, good employment. But let's be clear that all these institutions that have been put in place have not worked the way we wish they were working. Mm-hmm. The economy from...
You're sounding towards the way Kofi Bentil ended his submission.
Yes, because this has been the argument.
If there are institutions in place
this has been
with
the very
track
argument
record to do the things that you need to do,
everybody takes for granted.
which institutions we know are starved of resources and are not getting what they need to give the optimum. Mm-hmm. You leave them and then you go and set up new ones.
No, it's not. They are not mutually exclusive.
Okay.
It's not as if you should wait and work out all these institutions, make sure they are functioning very well, so that they will give you what you want. While you are doing this, there will be accidents of people having the misfortune of being thrown out by these malfunctioning institutions, as you want to say. And as these people are thrown out, what do we do with them? They are living human beings. For instance, our educational system turns out people who have not been able to complete their education. The economy, once in a while, is hit either by internal activities or processes that makes it impossible for the economy to run the way we run it, the way we should be running it. External factors affect the economy. All this yield a lot of unemployed youth, a lot of people who have no jobs, who otherwise would have been fixed somewhere if the economy had been running well. There is this army of unemployed people in the system. What the question I want to ask is, what do we do with them? You see, let's be very realistic. At no time in the history of this country or any other country have we had a very perfect system that gives us all the satisfaction and all the requirements necessary for everybody to be employed. Definitely at every time or every 10, you will find people who, because of a few problems within the institutional framework that is in place, are unable to find jobs. When the situation grows very serious, are you going to say that all these people should wait until we have restructured our educational system, we have run the economy to such perfection that all these people can fit into it? So what the argument some people are making, or some of us are saying, is that while we are dealing with the issue of trying to make sure these institutions are running properly, let's see what we can do with this unemployed youth.
What do you say your answer to what to do with the mass of unemployed youth? What do you say to this suggestion as an alternative? And I'm going to Imani again. Imani says that the so-called Youth Employment Agency to recruit 100,000 youth is another waste. It would be useful if the funds were dedicated to tax breaks for small-scale enterprises so they could train the identifiable youth. No government ever in Ghana ever does well with direct employment. Just check how the Comptroller and Accountant Generals seamlessly supports the employment of ghost workers. And as a result, we are wasting 70% of our taxes on a few real humans and several ghosts. Payroll fraud in Ghana account for that's 1 billion Ghana cedis annually. So you see why we should not seek an IMF bailout. He says this money, give it for as funds, dedicate them to tax breaks, okay, so that these enterprises, small-scale enterprises, will now train this identifiable youth who need job. And that in our history, governments have not been good at employment.
The simple conclusion I drive from what you just read is another way of saying that let's continue with youth employment. You see, when you say that we should give tax breaks so that small-scale enterprises can train the youth, have you examined closely what GYEEDA or youth employment seeks to do?
Exactly.
That's exactly what they seek to do. In fact, in 2009, when I got into the management of NYEP, what we realized was that the idea of employing youth and putting them in this short-term employment or employment payroll.
You called it internship.
No, not internship, but just putting them on the payroll and paying them after 2 years you exit them. It was not a sustainable thing. That was the first problem. Secondly, it was not going to yield the type of employment relief that we wanted for the youth of this country. So what we sought to do was to de-emphasize the payroll aspect of the youth employment and emphasize the youth enterprise aspect of it. And that is what they are talking about. But my argument I was making simply was that definitely in the system, there will be a lot of youth who cannot find jobs because the system has not been perfected. It has not been run the way everybody thinks it should have been run so that we can find all the jobs for the youth and so forth. Something must be done. And that something is the argument. There's that aspect of it that will involve the private sector. But there's also that aspect of it that will bring some minimum relief. After all, in some countries, they pay money to people for doing no work.
Yeah. Handouts.
They pay money to people for doing no work.
We do so
because the system
we have leave. We do so.
Yes, but it's not on a wide scale. The system recognizes the fact that definitely you have to do something in the meantime about those who are not employed. While you take your time to restructure the system to run the economy in a way that will make it perfect so that it can bring
all right,
employment.
Just hold it there for me. Thank you very much, Abuga Pele. Abdul Malik,
yeah.
How do you see the whole approach?
Well, I'm not surprised that there will be divergent views, particularly even based on ideological or philosophical, outlook. There are people who believe that, look, the situation in which we find ourselves, private sector or businesses must drive our advancement. There are those who believe that, look, in terms of the magnitude of the challenge that we face, the state ought to play a critical role. So sometimes there are also people who believe in a mixture of this thing.
It cost us 204 million in debts. So far, only 14.5 million Ghana cedis has been retrieved. So we have about 180 million cedis still to collect from those companies that were found to have taken the monies and not done the work they were supposed to do with them.
They are private sector people, and this. And the process was supervised and managed by public sector officials. So there is a mixed bag there. It is not the abuse that I'm focusing on now.
Okay.
It's the principle of the project and whether it is a workable project. Human element being what it is, some people will abuse it. And that's why we have legal regimes that come with sanctions to cure that kind of mischief. That's what it is. There's no society out there. Maybe you're looking for the very ideal one, but there's no society out there that will not be challenged in terms of implementation of otherwise laudable projects. But before I proceed any further, I just want to do some little corrections. The NYEP, the records will indicate that was rather a National Security Council recommendation and not Baredu's recommendation. So my brother will have to check his records.
I'm just basing it on the memo that started the project.
Your own memo even, no.
The memo that started the project to cabinet.
No, it was a National Security Council.
No, but that memo was signed by Baredu, and I have a copy here. A memo that was signed by Baredu to start.
This document, this paper.
Fine, but maybe you have that. But
this paper I hold here has all the details.
Okay.
Okay, fine, but
so there's no need. It's only curing a correction.
So it could have been a concept of the national security, but Baredu as finance minister.
Yes, but I believe, Mr.
Yes, so that's what I'm saying.
See, in your own
work.
I have this is the starting memo that went to cabinet after a job workshop in Akosombo, which muted the idea, and after that, Baredu put it in the format. In fact, linking it up to even the pages.
Actually, the initial recommendations were done by the National Security.
Fine. So, okay. That's all we are not doing.
No, it's not a big deal.
Right.
Just for the benefit of, and just
to
see the own memorandum that this administration sent to Parliament in recent times for the new project that we are discussing. This is what it states here. In 2006, the National Security Outfit recommended the establishment of the National Youth Employment Program to reduce increasing unemployment and underemployment among the youth.
Right.
The situation of massive youth unemployment was considered a national security threat.
Right. Yeah. That's right.
It's no
That's
big
2006.
deal. Yeah, 2006.
But this one signed by Barredo is 2005 or 7? August 2000, and it says that a cabinet retreat at
August
Kosovo,
2005.
2005. It was considered.
Yes.
Yes.
2005.
Yes,
Okay,
but
so
the recommendation for the creation and this thing.
Okay, no problem.
All right, we'll move on.
This is the booklet on the NYEP.
Right.
It repeats what this administration has captured.
That's right.
There's no doubt about it, but there's no big deal. It was perceived that the massive youth unemployment was a security threat. And I think nobody can deny that. Quite a lot of these days, you do a statistical analysis of the armed robbers who are captured or the suspects and check their age level. And you would see that out there are a lot of young people who have nothing to do, who dropped out of school and did not try to find alternative things to do. So it's a very serious project. Now, I agree. The kind of economy we run, which is now today private sector driven, but it's still multi-sectored, you definitely will have a role for private sector if you capitalize the economy, if you open up business opportunities, and if the businesses are working, clearly they can absorb some of this unemployed youth. If the educational system is working and working properly, again, you can get a lot of people educated so that they can find means of going out there. But we all know that even as we speak, because we haven't linked industry with education properly, we have a lot of people, even graduates, who come out and cannot find jobs.
That's
and are
right.
out there for years doing nothing.
Mm.
So you see, you are faced with a challenge immediately. What is the solution? The solution, I believe, is multifaceted. You cannot reduce the solution to one track. You have to open up the opportunities for all sectors to be involved in dealing with this matter. And that is where I believe this NYEP thing came in. It looks as if today we are trying to make it more of a permanent thing, to give it a certain sense of permanence. That is what the distinction I see between that and the previous one. I think it's the management processes that go into the quality of management and administration that will come to bear on this particular project. I'm not too sure that saying that that thing is a non-starter is the way forward, which appears to be, if I'm right, Mr. Bentil, if I'm wrong, he can correct me, but I think that's a trust of the money position, that perhaps this is a non-starter and that it ought not to be, implemented. It's just another waste zone that we are going into.
Mostly, but not exactly.
Okay.
It should be seen as an interim measure and must have a termination point.
Interesting. Then it means it goes back to the previous project.
The original idea was not permanent.
But then it means, but I thought the original concept too you didn't support.
When it became a policy, and we clearly saw it being captured by politicians for a certain purpose, we said because if you see the memo that followed, it departed from the idea of a temporary situation, to arrest something which could blow up. And now you had a situation where it was becoming like a permanent thing. And that is what has led, our fears have been founded in YEA.
Very interesting. How temporary should it be?
Okay, this
how temporary?
Let me tell you, a small job
considering the magnitude of the challenge.
Let me explain it to you.
Yeah, time frame.
The source of the problem is a failed basic education system. We analyze that 10 years money and management is what you need to fix that. 10 years, money and management. Okay, we said there were some people who were beyond it. And those people, from Rawlins's time, they were absorbed into the non-formal education system.
Yes.
Okay, if you see the amount of money we are spending on non-formal education, and you compare that to what we are spending in primary education, it's terrible. In 2010, we spent 13.3 million in non-formal education. and we spent 715,000 in primary education. 370 as against, you know, so that non-formal education system still is there. Now, we thought that those people who could not go into that, okay, as in they can't be helped, there was this idea that, look, find work for them now. The question is what work? In all those things, the suggestion was let them do concrete molding. Because we have had a construction boom in this country for about 15 years. When you mold a block and it's sitting there, if it's not sold, it doesn't get worse. Okay, and concrete molding goes through the whole spectrum. Girls can be employed, boys can be employed, labor is involved, you know, technical work is involved, everything. So the short-term nature will be preserved, but return people to school who can go to school. We found a bad situation in something that did not try and lift people up, but went to teach people how to ride bicycles, make baskets, you know, all those things, which are not necessarily evil. But the point is, the temporary nature means return people to school who can go to school, return people to vocational training who can manage it, okay?
Through that short-term program.
Through the short-term.
Is that 10 years?
You see, like you said, it has to be multifaceted.
Yes.
I'm rushing through, but the point is, we had
need
existing institutions that one could see to returning people to school, could see to vocational training. Those who fell out, you could manage through a non-formal education arrangement, aiming to give them skills that could do something for them.
Okay.
And then you have those who you can't help at all, let them do concrete
I
molding.
think that your problem, the problem of Iman, go on. The problem of Iman is that you are just focusing on the wrongs of the past and using that to judge the intentions or the proposed policies that are going to come out in the future. You see, you don't know what informed the bringing of GYEEDA to youth and
we all know.
to employment. You don't know what informed that. And you need to look at why that. And two, talking about these institutions linkages, look, under the Ministry of Employment, we have MVTI, we have the ISES, we have a lot of institutions who are directly linked to training. And the idea now is to bring GYEEDA, link it up with all these institutions to strengthen the training aspect of people. So that will address what you are talking about. But in the meantime, there's another section of people who in the first place are not trainable. Do you understand? They're not trainable. When you go especially into the villages, that's why you want to use people like that for things like the sanitation model, where people don't need any special skill to do it. Somebody has gotten up, as you were talking about, our system didn't give him the opportunity to go to school, and now he has to work and earn a living. What do you do with him? So we need to look at it from all angles and don't just look at it from one angle.
Okay.
The issue about being permanent or not permanent,
so
whether permanent or not permanent, we will need a law.
Okay. Now let's hear.
Yeah, quite an interesting. The input Bentil made subsequently has enlarged my vision a bit in terms of where they are coming from. But how temporal will the interim thing be? It's itself a challenge. Right. You know, considering the magnitude of the problem we are confronted.
Yeah, he had given 10 years within which that could be taken
temporal.
care of.
10 years.
And you know we are in the 10th anniversary as we speak.
Yes, but that is a bit okay. 10 years is quite a time that one could use to cure the mischief that we've identified. But there's another thing that I find difficult to accept, and I hear it often, it's quite recurrent when the government spokesperson or advocates speak relative to the previous one, that because it didn't have a legal regime, that is why quite a lot of the abuses occurred.
No, that's not the only thing.
Yeah, I find it difficult to accept that because even it went under a ministry.
Be a reason.
It was within a ministry.
Yeah.
Within a ministry, it had no choice but to adhere to the financial administration regulations and laws that we had in this country.
Unfortunately,
actually,
no, so it is not. So the argument I'm making.
No, actually, the program was run directly under the ministry. In fact, I don't know what happened before our time.
That's right.
But
no, that's what it was done too.
Yeah, it was under the Ministry
I don't
of
want to.
Employment.
Yes,
I don't know
the
much
same.
about
It's
it.
here.
Yeah.
It's documented.
But under our regime, the ministry did all the procurement. The ministry was responsible for Everything.
And they were not exempted from the procurement law.
Yeah.
Were they?
Everything. In fact, even to purchase books, we have to revert.
You
to
just
that.
hold on.
So that's
let
the
me finish,
difference.
and then I'm coming to the law. We all have copies of the law here. We want to see what is changed and how will the loopholes, the gaping holes that existed, and allow people to use GYEEDA as a vehicle to enrich themselves, or so to say,
I'm not
rape the
against
country
an
stock.
enabling legislation for an entity of that sort. It's important. I am suggesting that we should not create the impression that the absence of that enabling legislation is what led to those things. That's a fallacy.
Right.
We all know that. It's
now
a
back
fallacy.
to you.
Yes.
Now back to you.
Yes.
What is new in this law that solves the problem?
Yes.
There's a tweet, and I'm unable to really read portions of it. It's coming from Abduna Sewa, and she says that restarting GYEEDA now is like reopening a broken public toilet before fixing it. She said a few things. I can't repeat them.
No, you see, let me start by, before I even come to the law, just a minute on what Kweku said. We have not said anywhere, and that has not been the position of government, that the only problem that faced GYEEDA was the absence of the law. We have never said that. In fact, when I came here, I gave 3 major problems. I looked at the political aspect of it.
Right.
I looked at the caliber of the people who work in there.
That is
and then I looked at the law. So I'm talking about the management of it. I'm looking at the politicization of the project, and finally the law that is supposed to guide it.
But you certainly followed the period when the NPP was blamed so much for not providing an enabling legislation.
It's stated in the memo.
It's in the memo.
No, but you see, when a committee was set up, please, the committee in its report
even states that.
Stated that the absence of the law is a major problem. You see, when something is a major problem, it's a major problem.
And that's all I said. But that is not what led to
let's not create the impression that it is the only problem that faces GYEEDA. That is not the only problem.
Thank you.
Now when you come to the law,
the new law, that is the Youth
see,
Employment Agency.
We are all
sorry. It's a new Youth Employment Agency bill. Has the president assented to it? He's got 7 days within which to have done that.
I don't know yet, but I'm sure it would have been done. But I'm not. I've not received the signal yet. It was just passed last
Wednesday or so.
Right. So surely by next Wednesday we should have it. You know, the law as it stands now, and this is from our own, born out of our own experience. And when I said that the two divide or admit that thing is a good project. And so if it's a good project, how do we make it work? So we all said that fine. Let's look at the recommendation given by the committee and see how we move this project forward. And the first thing is to have the law. Because we decided that even since 2013 up to now, not even a single penny has been used in terms of modules or whatnot, unless maybe for administrative purposes. And so we were waiting for a law to come into place, have a legal regime that will, one, guide the people themselves who are going to work there. Two, what type of modules that are you going in? And even when you are going in, how do you go about the contracts? Three, the caliber of people there. Now, as I talk to you now, the people who are working there have all been moved to the public service scheme. And that means that a lot of people have even lost their jobs because a lot of people who didn't measure because they were subjected to the Public Service Commission and they were interviewed. And so a lot of people have been weeded out of the system. So now they are going to be subjected to the full, regulations of the public servants. You understand? So that aspect of the caliber management or the type of people who are going to work there is being looked at. You cannot say that it is fully resolved. Now, but all this, you need a basic law, and that law, when you look at the law, I always say that the law captures the initial thinking of those people who brought up the idea. The thrust of the law is to solve youth unemployment. And more importantly, provide, because When you look at, that's why I'm talking about the temporal nature of the treaty. When you look at the law doesn't intend to say that this is going to provide permanent work. It talks about facilitating the youth, facilitating them to get into better employment.
I've actually asked you to educate all of us, enlighten us how this new law, what is new about it?
This is a new law. When you say what is new about it, this is the new law. So what is new about a new law?
What does it stop the wrong ways? How does it stop the wrong ways that were
giving you the three basics. One, this time is not going to be politicized as it used to be, because now he's going to have a chief executive, he's going to have a board appointed to govern the agency. It used not to be so. It used to be at the whims of the minister. Now we're going to have the board. We are also going to have all the structure. In fact,
no, just hold on. Just hold on with the board.
That's right.
Section 27.
Okay.
Establishment of regional committees. 27.1 says, the board shall, in consultation with the minister responsible for a region, establish in each region a regional committee consisting of a chairperson who is the regional minister. You say you have taken away the politics.
Let me stop you from there. This one is the original law. We have done changes.
Okay.
When it came the final law, a lot has been changed from this.
So,
there's no
the point is that you did not intend to cure that. It took Parliament to point out to you that you are still introducing the politics into it. So remove the regional, the minister chair.
That is the country we run.
Okay.
When people, the executive does something, it is subject to the approval of Parliament.
Executive that is doing something with the benefit of two committees that have made recommendations that you identify that the political interference was terrible. And yet that executive still puts in the political person as the head of the board.
The executive, you are a lawyer. And you know that when a lower court pronounces a judgment, that is not the end of it.
That's correct.
It goes to a higher court. So if the executive does a law and says that, look, we are subjecting it to the scrutiny of Parliament.
The main concern should be the law as it is now.
As it is now, not as it was.
Not what was. Because a lot of amendments have been made. Even at the cabinet stage, a lot of changes.
When you look at even this, there was going to be a fund. Now the fund has been taken out. There was going to be a fund.
And this bill, the bill as it was before it was brought to Parliament.
Yes.
Was done under when I was the CEO of the place. And we were doing it in the light of the experiences we were having around.
As at that time.
As it moved, there was improvement until Parliament, as I can say that even with this one.
I just pointed him to one thing.
Even with this one.
The greatest of respect to all of you.
How does this stop from paying 500
so
cedis to somebody who pays 100 cedis and takes...
No. Now, you see, for example, when you look at the law, now there are even sanctions in there, and people who are supposed to be engaged as service providers, what are their limitations? What are the issues that should be considered? They are all embedded in the law. So now, before a person is even taken as a service provider, you have some responsibility.
Before then, the procurement law, if we are dealing with goods and services, had nothing to do with
all
that.
Those things. Look, that was the abuses of the system. That's what I'm saying. No. It's because that time. Look, I tried to.
Difficult.
No, you will find it difficult because you see, let all of us agree that. I started by saying, please. I started by saying that. Let's start how the project started. It started politically, and so the politics of it was just too much, and that's why a lot of things were done wrong.
But we know by the records
Look, in the first
that
place,
the way it started, from the initial stages, it didn't suffer the problem and the rot that has now been exposed.
And is the politics over now?
Please, that's not true.
It's surprised.
That's surprised to see what happened.
No, I'm talking about what is
why
Let's give it to
why is it not?
If you want us to come and fool,
Why is it not in this report?
on
Let me just give it to
Where is it
I
not in
always
this
try,
report?
please, I always try to avoid
But you did
going
it.
back
You've
and
done it
forth.
already.
Please, I've not.
Baba,
I
you've
have
done
not.
it.
I have not. I just make reference to this because we were
No, that's
Okay,
not what we're talking
so you were continuing to tell us
You've done
what
it.
has been done in respect of the recommendations to block the roads.
Exactly. The roads that were identified by the report. Because
Which report?
when you look at the report, up to 2008 when we took over, if I'm to tell you what happened, and Abuga Bello will bear me out, the records that will move from Minister of Employment to Youth, up to now we are searching for records. Please. So
we don't have the records.
Don't let us go into
what
that.
does the law do to
I don't get it.
So we will come to that if you want us to have a full day on that.
No, I don't get what you are saying.
Move
But
on
what
to
I'm
this.
saying that the law as it stands now, if you look at the politicization of it, as you said, for example, the regional chairman like this, at first we even proposed the regional chairman to become the chairman. All those things have been taken out.
Okay.
Now you're going to appoint private people to chair.
Okay.
Private institutions will come in. When you look at the models, like I said, service providers will be engaged based on certain conditions. All those things.
Has this also been removed? The minister is supposed to appoint 2 persons to the board.
No, that
one remains.
Yes, that
it is the minister chairing the board that has been removed.
It has been removed, but you see, private people, one of them should be a woman, because we wanted to have a feminine in the. If you don't put it,
the
in
minister is
All
not
these are
supposed to
government
appoint private people.
Yes.
There's supposed to be a private enterprise foundation, one person from private enterprise foundation,
Exactly.
one person from the organization of persons with disability,
That's right.
and then 2 persons nominated by the regional minister, one of whom should be a woman.
Yes. That's it. How it is. So these are all things to make sure that we have some fairness when it comes to the provisions of the district. Another important thing is that in the law now we have a full section, even the secretary to the board. Under normal circumstances, most companies have the chief executive being the secretary to the board. But now the new law provides a private person becoming the secretary to the board. A private secretary. In fact, at the point, somebody even suggested that the person should be a lawyer. But somebody drew our attention to the fact that there are people now who charter as chartered secretaries. And so if you say lawyer, it blocks such people. So we open it up. That a person from the private sector comes in. All these things are structured to ensure that people will not be able to abuse the system.
Sorry, please, on that. You see, look, the committee, if you read, the regional labor officer.
Please let me figure out what you are looking at, because it may not be the final. These are all
these
proposed
people are
amendments.
people and they end
These
up
were
being
all
political
proposed
operatives.
amendments. I wish
So let's see the
because we
actual.
couldn't. No,
My point is the political control is still there.
Yes. No, but you see, this country, my brother, whether you like it or not, and look at all the institutions, you cannot take out 100% political influence everywhere.
I agree with you, but then let's not pretend.
So don't pretend as if this is something that we can have 100% zero political non-influence.
So
It's
let's
not
not also
possible.
pretend that this new law is going to take away the political control.
No,
let me tell you.
I've not
Let me
said
tell
so.
you what
I
I'm
have
looking
not
for.
Okay,
So
so
that you
just
can help me.
let's do
I
it this
have
way.
not said so.
Let's
So
do
you
it-
can help.
I
Hold
said
on.
that
I'll let him finish
ensure
his submission
fairness.
so that you know
Yes.
each person can be heard at one point or
Okay.
the other. Can we move on to the question of finance, which is a major issue
Exactly.
that also faced GYEEDA?
Very good.
You proposed a number of
Exactly.
places where you wanted to pick funds from, and the minority were not excited about some of them. Tell us.
There were 2 major controversial areas, let me put it for lack of a better word. That was the fund issue, which was finally dropped, and then the sources of funds. Now, when you look at the sources of funds as we have it now, at first, and I want to also say that we looked at the traditional sources of GYEEDA in passing this one. We look at the traditional sources of GYEEDA, what was proposed by the people who initiated it. We have even reduced what they intended. For example, the road fund was part of it. We have taken it out. National health insurance was a source. It has been taken out. The GET fund was 10%, but now has been reduced to 5%. Common fund was 15%. It has now been reduced to 10%. You understand? So these are the sources for the agency as we talk now, and that is what Parliament has passed. So these were the controversies were around health insurance and what, and all those things. So we have to go for winnowing 4 times. When we say winnowing, I mean when there is a controversy on the floor, the speaker orders you 2 parties go and meet. Make sure you come to a compromise.
The fact, though, is that initially you attempted to pass it under a certificate of emergency. It was stopped, and then agency. It was stopped, and then you attempted.
Who wanted to pay the certificate? You see, when you come to Parliament, please. sometimes the processes of parliament must be understood. I mean, these are our senior people in parliament, and they know that, you see, when a bill comes, it doesn't matter in the form that it comes. If it can be arrested, it will be arrested. It may come under certificate of agency, or it can come in normal procedure. If it should be arrested, it will be arresed. It doesn't matter when you want it.
Okay.
And this one, let me tell you for the first time, this particular bill, for the first time, is when you go into the records of Parliament, it's one of the bills that saw most sitting, one of them. In fact, at only the committee level, we sat for 9 times. It never happened. In fact, most of the time, it's 3, 4, and they will tell you. Apart from that, beside that 9 at the committee level, when we introduced it, we sat on it, we know him 4 times, with both the minority leader and his team, majority leader with him, trying, because both parties agree
that would not have happened under certificate of urgency.
No. When you arrest it, you have arrested it.
All right, Kuku, let's deal with the issue of political, face of the project and the financing. I've heard the minority raise questions about the financing. We haven't heard them speak so loudly about the politics of it, even though it appears that they have successfully, gotten those portions properly, whittled down.
Yes, in terms of the source of funding or funds, it's clear that there's a distinction now. Right. Previously, there was no legal backing for those things like the deductions being made from the communications service tax,
right,
the district assembly common fund. There was no legal backing, even though it was.
Actually, the communication service tax, that had parliamentary approval.
Oh, okay.
Is the get fund?
No, I'm talking of previous under the
I'm talking about the previous regime.
Yes. It didn't.
No, it has a law. It has a law.
That had legal backing. They were only releasing 20%.
20%
program.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the problem.
But now
the other sources, they didn't have legal backing.
Yes, so the other sources now have legal backing now, which is actually the extension between that and the previous ones.
Yes.
One would only hope that in terms of management, because you see the law could be okay now that this is what you can take from here to this place.
Exactly.
And that is why I have a certain difficulty with the point that, with a new law, everything will go smooth sailing. I have a serious difficulty with that because there were laws, that guided the previous ones, or if not directly, the laws were in existence. There was no way you could do get goods and services without going through the Public Procurement Act. There was no way. So many of the financial administration regulations and laws were violated, even though those laws were there. Look, and I'm sorry, Mr. Abugapil, I'm not making any reference to your case in particular. I don't want to be misrepresented. Why are we charging and prosecuting some people in court? In reference to what?
Yeah, because of some of the laws.
Yes. Yes, so the laws were there.
Yes.
And yet some of them were not adhered to. You see, so that's the point I really. But the politicization, I'm really not getting it.
Yeah, Kuku, this is the aspect I'm looking at. I had already made reference to one of the sections where you had a board, a regional board. That's section 27. Yeah, a regional committee where you're going to have appointment, and the regional minister was supposed to chair. He says they've removed that one away, so the regional minister will not chair. But the minister still is able to appoint 2 persons to that committee. You also have, there is also at the district level, the same thing is going to happen, and the district chief executive also has the power to appoint 2 people onto. Are these really necessary?
You see, politicization, I draw a distinction between political and the politicization. We cannot entirely avoid politics or the political in terms of governance structures. Yes, and so that's a valid point. The politicization is the distortion, the bastardization of the political. The twisting and turning of the objective into something else, perhaps to favor your political tradition, chronism and all the rest. So I don't think, if it's back to the quality of management that will bring to bear on this thing, the sincerity, the commitment to the laid down principles. That's the way I see it. But we are going to have to wait a while to see when this thing takes off, and then perhaps examine it on basis of.
I think we can see what will happen, okay, from what we are seeing already, because we saw something in the beginning. And it's not only that.
I like
look,
that.
Single spine. Okay, same things, great intentions, and we said, look, watch out, this is what will happen. It happened. Listen, our view of all this is that you have a situation where statutory funds are moved from statutory bodies well controlled under law, Get Fund, NHIS, District Assembly Common Fund, Ministry of Finance, etc., and put in a structure that is controlled by political operatives for ostensibly youth employment, but actually different other things. Wait, that's my position. Wait. And I'm saying, mark this, freeze it, keep it somewhere, and let's come back 5 years. My point is this. How does the new arrangement change this reality? Do you have a situation where we are moving funds from statutory bodies into a certain structure, which structure is more amenable to abuse by political operatives? Who are the people running this thing? You have establishment of regional committees. The board shall, in consultation with the minister.
Don't read that one.
No, I'm reading this one.
That is the old one.
Where's the new one?
I'm telling you
You're
that
talking about amendments. You're talking about amendments.
So this is not the old.
Give me the one. I'll read your own.
I have given. No, listen. I've given. It has not
So
been put
I should read
together,
this
but
one.
this is some of the amendments that you can find in. So
that's what I
take
was
your
reading.
time
Okay.
first.
You have pointed out that the chairmanship has been removed.
Yes. So
Apart
when
from
you tell
that, nothing
anything,
has
I'll
happened.
change it then.
Right.
So you
Right.
go on.
So go
So
ahead.
is the chairperson the regional minister? No.
No,
it's no
No more.
Okay, but there's the committee part. Let me go to the committee part. I was reading my yellow paper. Now you're giving me this one. The regional director of the agency.
Yes.
Okay. Now, who appoint that person? Because in
That
this
person is a
one,
public servant now.
good. You see, so you have
It's a public servant now.
is a public
He's
servant.
going to be a public servant.
Okay. Now, the regional director of the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations.
Yes. He's a public servant. He's a civil servant who is serving there.
Yeah, they go through Public Service
Public
Commission
Service Commission.
and appoint.
And get appointed there.
Here, the amendment says a regional labor officer.
Yes. He is also a public servant. He's not appointed by us. If he goes through the system and reach that level, and he is going to be there. I don't have any power to say, don't be there.
The regional director of the agency, that is the YEA.
That's why that's what I've told you. He's a public servant.
That is not a public servant.
He's a public servant now.
The YEA, which is being formed now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All
Whose
the
appointments will be made by political.
Let me inform you. All those people who were there. A lot of them have even been changed because when they went to the Public Service Commission for interview, they didn't pass. Those who were passed, some have been moved. So there have been some raise in terms of standard for those people who are going to be there, and they've been moved to the public service.
The regional director of the National Youth Authority.
That's one. Is also another public servant. We don't appoint them.
And the directors of the National Youth Authorities don't have strong political leanings. We don't know them as clear political operatives.
It's an institution that predates all of us.
Honorable,
There
is the reality and there is the defense you are giving me.
The president appoints the chief executive and all the other key officers of the agency.
Our reality should not be taken away from all these things. The Constitution has given power to a president that was elected based on a partisan consideration. But at the end of the day, when he become president, he become president for all of us. And he has been enclosed with some authority to appoint some people. You can't take it away from him. And when you look at this one, it's not different from other agencies that you and me, like I saw your rating sometime and you said the National Insurance is one of the performing this law. When you look at their law and compare it, you will see that we are trying as much as possible to look at all these things and how can we make it a fair institution that will be accepted by all.
The level of comfort is low. I don't see much of it. People want us to wait. But you see, my worry is these are young people. The armed robbery gangs are 18 to 25-year-olds. Okay? Will this cure that problem? And look, we have enough money pushed in this thing. Okay? We have enough energy around this thing. But consistently, we sidetrack it and use it for the wrong things. How will that change in this new structure? I am sorry to say, but 5 years down the line, I so hope we don't come back and have to tell the same story.
You have read the new law, I suppose, or at the draft level. You think this is the way to go?
One thing I wanted to add was, it's not just us saying that we need the law in order for things to be run properly.
Right.
Even the auditors, if you look at the audit report, from 2009 to 2011, they've always indicated that there's a need for an enabling law. When the World Bank team came over the negotiation over the $65 million they wanted to support the program, they indicated clearly in their aid memoir that we needed an enabling law, in spite of the fact that we were working under the ministry. So many institutions have recommended the need for a particular enabling law regarding the National Youth Employment Program. So that one, it became very necessary. We are not the only people arguing that the law was necessary. But as to whether, now that the law is in place, whether it will cure the problems that people have identified with GYEEDA, like Mr. Kokoako said, it will depend on management. Exactly. It will depend on how
the human beings who are put in
management depends on the political control.
No. I don't think
political control. Because
I'm not even saying there should not be political control. What I'm saying is that
we are saying that you have limited even the powers of
let me tell you again what we saw as the problem of GYEEDA. Plain chronism. And when Koku says, yes, it's private sector, yes, wait. Plain chronism, people select the partners to rip off the system. Plain corruption. Okay? Crass incompetence, including people not qualified doing what they shouldn't be doing. And criminal dereliction of duty. People who should go collect monies they didn't collect, who shouldn't have paid monies they paid. All these things, okay, over what clearly has come out to be political cover.
No, but I identified this in the beginning.
Yes, and I'm saying
that the people worked there because there was no law and structures. People just pick their brothers and sisters and say, come and wait. They don't go through any public service.
Politically
and all that is not possible now.
Everybody is going
now you can't
public
do that
service.
The management is
Mr. Bugapele, one of the major criticisms that GYEEDA faced as part of its failure was that GYEEDA was not tapping the expertise of institutions like the NVTI, where you needed to do things in film and so, is it, what do you call it, movie production things. You should have gone to NAFTI, you didn't go to NAFTI, you got some lady, we know later on what happened, and then a whole lot of things. Now, is that, one of those who...
Gallywood also.
Yeah, Gallywood matters.
Well, it's not a lady, it's not a gentleman.
There was a lady who was indicted.
Let me also correct one thing.
No, the question I'm asking is, now are you going to partner with these entities rather than go to RLG and Jospon?
Is it? Let me put your question in context. Is it before we even decided?
It's not a useless question.
No, it's a very good question. Let me not go there. It's a very good question. Before we even embarked on adding models to it, these models that you have mentioned, RLG, Azuntaba, all these were already models that had been signed already under the previous regime. All we did was to renew and expand the scope of it. So many people are unable to know that they just think that from 2009 we created all this.
You haven't answered my question.
No, I'm coming to. I want you to understand.
You can do it quickly because we need to move on to other issues that we have to discuss.
So I think that to get back to your question, I think that with a new law, with a properly defined sources of financing, and a cap on who can be a service provider and how the service provider should be contracted, with the insistence that it must go through proper procurement procedures and all that, I think that will keep some of the things that we are seeing disturbing the program now.
As far as you're concerned, this is a nice project now to go on with.
Yes, I think
we should not, like some say, wait until we have retrieved the 180 million that is left.
The two can go alongside each other. Why do you have to wait and do one before the other? We can be retrieving whatever monies we want to retrieve from the service providers who have not paid out, while at the same time implementing.
What do you say to those critics who say there's no commitment to retrieve the money? Because they were supposed to pay in quarters. Only the first quarter was paid, 14 million by the Agams group. All the other groups, nobody has paid anything since then.
Let me even tell you how those monies came to be debts owed to government. You see, initially, before 2006, when they signed the contracts with the service providers, they released a certain amount to them for trainees, like they are paying the fees of those trainees. These amounts, some of it normally is utilized in the purchase of equipment. After you finish training the people, the equipment doesn't come back to the program. So what we did after we took over was that this amounts that you use in buying equipment like cars and whatnot, that doesn't come back because it's money belonging to NYEP. In lieu of that, pay 10% of whatever you get to the program. So for Agans Group, that amounted to what you are now calling loans to Agans Group, and so forth and so forth. And before I even left the program, we had written letters indicating when they should pay up and so forth. So it's not as if somebody was trying to hide.
That's right.
Well, the point is that still is not being paid.
Can I add something
yes,
to it?
30 seconds.
The first thing we have to know is that all those who are owing are being engaged by the Attorney General's Department. Certain terms are coming. There are some people who even doing some sort of debt swaps or something because certain services were provided, some were paid, some were not paid. All these things are being considered, and it is seriously being done. Now, the second thing also that I want to understand, and I want to assure the public, is that whilst this time, because of the law, at least we have a basis upon which to work. If an individual goes there and gets corrupt, we can hold him or her to it. Now, the last thing I want to indicate is
as for the laws on corruption, they pre-existed.
Of course, of course. So it's not whether there was law or law. If a person wants to corrupt, he corrupt, and the system must deal with the person. The final thing is that one of the things we identify is that you just, like Abu Gabeli said, you just train the people and exit them. This time, we want a situation where recognized institutions like MBTI, ISS, NDPI, and all those people who come in, when they train people on a particular model, they certify the person. For example, if you train a person like block laying that you are talking about, the person after 2 years of training becomes maybe a professional block layer. He must have some certification so that when he decides to leave the NYP, he can go to another place.
Right.
These are all things that are being considered. So the linkages that we are.
So you now recognize that you should have been using them.
Yeah. No, I agree. But I said that because from the beginning, the things were not set right.
Okay.
Some ideas are very valid ideas.
Now, sorry, just some. If you can do this in 20 seconds, it's very important to some people because there are some text messages that suggest that this is very critical for the NDC, not the government, the NDC going into the 2016 elections because this is an avenue to get your supporters on board.
This is critical for Ghana. Youth unemployment is a national security threat. All of us are worried, and especially we as politicians, we are worried because we know when the axe has to fall, we are the first to fall on. So it is good for Ghana and not for NDC.
All right. Now, let's hear you.
The youth unemployment issue is here with us, but the solutions that are being proposed must be temporary. We must focus on the key problem and solve that one. That is basic education.
Right.
You have a situation where 100,000 constitute just about 1%, okay, of the people. In fact, if you take the whole education system, okay, our view is that we should take how much money we are spending in primary education and augment it, including management, and not spend more than 5% of the budget of primary education in schemes like this. If you want to help these youth, give these tax breaks to young people who are doing business, help encourage more people to do that kind of stuff. And then institutions or organizations that are employing young people, especially young people with less skills, give them higher incentive. Why won't you have an African concrete product type of company in every region? Okay, so we should have a strategic approach to this which actually solves the problem. This gives too much room for political capture. And when that continues, you can expect that politicians are going to capture it for their own purposes. So we need to go back to this drawing board because this proposal is not going to solve the problem.
Very interesting. Some of your views and comments are coming in. Halidu Blausi says, Samson, I think the handlers of the youth employment program have always planned their activities and programs excluding the youth who are meant to benefit from the program. The youth have their own ideas that may be very viable but inexpensive. Why don't we engage the beneficiaries and make them a part of the whole program so that they can own it and ensure it works? Thank you for that message. Got quite a lot also here. This one, Ibrahim Mohammed Kalani says that I completely disagree with Honorable Baba Jamal that the NYEP started as a political project where people were employing family members. The NDC rather made it political by making their constituency and deputy constituency organizers the district coordinators and deputy coordinators of the program, irrespective of their level of education. Tamale Central, North, South, Yendi, Boli, etc. are cases in point. Victor Boisi Boating says, he says that GYEEDA is not the way to go. It is just with the government providing vocational training, apprenticeship, apprenticeship and education. The government must liaise with companies and offer them tax breaks. Okay, you are just repeating what Imani is preaching. Wanda Theophilos says, Kukubaku, position yourself very well so that you can fish out the inaccuracies that may be brought out. He didn't say it exactly that way. I've tried to dress it up because he's referring to some animals. Then Archibald Kwabna Opong says, where is RLG, who was a big player in GYEEDA? A bird whispered into my ears of how staff at RLG have not received their salaries for a couple of months. Getting things done in the right way is definitely part of the solution. And then this is from Malik Al-Hasbaz, says, who would have guessed that a country that is in serious economic crisis and monetary deficit would think of resurrecting a deadly ghost like GYEEDA, which has been a disaster in its source of corruption. The government claims it is suffering from huge wage bill and so cannot give the real workers of the country 10% increase in salaries despite the high cost of living. But the government can create yet another avenue to reward party foot soldiers and party officials. Well, that's the suspicion that runs through some of the messages that are a critique of the program. They feel that, you know, it is supposed to reward party people.
It's because of our past experience.
Park Ganiu says, Samson, I associate myself with Kofi Bento's preliminary comments on the youth employment agency. But contrary to what the new law will do, contrary to that, what the new law will do is to define clearly the sort of people who are qualified to be employed as administrators, as well as offer a board to supervise the activities of the agency. All right, so he's expressing hope that by the new act, things will improve. And I'll take a final one from Sisi Collery. He says that, Sisi Colley says, Samson, we have lots of misplaced priorities in Ghana which enable people to have easy access to cheap money. People who have stolen state money must be punished severely. Good and quality education is the best way forward in most countries. They are focusing on technical and vocational education. We must improve on this type of education. I also think that our institutions are just very toothless and not biting enough. We must wake up and put Ghana first. Thank you very much for those views that you all have been sharing with us. We're taking a break here, and when we return, we'll look at the other matters that, you know, have made the headlines and deserve, you know, a critical look. And Abuga Pele will still stay with us for some of those issues. You know, he knows football, so he'll deal with some of the matters as far as football is concerned. Thank you very much. But I was just hoping to just make just a quick comment from you. What you say, I've intentionally decided not to read those messages coming into my inbox about you being a sacrificial lamb, people saying Kofi Humado and others who was a minister should have been the one rather in court answering questions and not you.
But I told you earlier I will not make a comment on this.
I know, I'm not saying comment on what is going on right there in the courtroom, with the evidence you are dealing with.
What can I say that will not be related to what
is that how you feel? Is that how you feel?
But I feel strongly that I should not say anything about this.
I see. Even your constituents have organized demonstrations. That's how they feel about it.
Yes, they have, because they feel I should not be where I've been put.
They feel you are being unjustly dealt with.
I don't want to make a comment on this.
I see.
The court will tell whether I've been dealt with justifiably or not.
Okay. Thank you very much, Abu Gape. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back. This is Newsfile.